Hello, this is Patrick Barnard in Montreal. It is November 17th, 2024. Another short commentary on a book and a writer, in this case, Virginia Woolf, and her book, Orlando, this amazing comic fantasy published in 1928 by Hogarth Press, the publishing firm owned by Virginia Woolf and her husband, Leonard Woolf. That's almost 100 years ago, 1928. But this book is enormously important for writers today. I can't tell you how many writers I've been reading lately who have pointed to Woolf as a central influence on their life and on their purpose in their art. Now, Virginia Woolf lived from 1882 until 1941 when, unfortunately, she committed suicide in the River Ouse in Sussex, in England. She was very much of her society, written 100 years ago, but also very critical of it. She was part of the famous Bloomsbury set, Bohemians, very creative Bohemians, in the beginning part of the 20th century. Orlando was published in 1928, only 3 years after Mrs. Dalloway, which was published in 1925. I've taught that to students, as have thousands and thousands of other people. Mrs. Dalloway is a tremendous picture of modernity. It takes place in one day and involves a kind of prose that is simply scintillating. Virginia Woolf invented her own type of stream of consciousness writing, which really does mirror the movements and the energy of the human mind. Now, Virginia Woolf was of her world, written 100 years ago. She was also very much a critic of it and a mother, you could put it, of modernity. The central figure in Orlando is a man who becomes a woman, a non-binary person who lives for more than 300 years. And the novel starts in this extraordinary house, castle, huge place with 365 rooms, it is said. It's modeled after a real place called Knowle, Knole, that is still visited today. It was a castle, a property in the Sackville family. And much of Orlando concerns a love affair that Virginia Woolf had with Vita Sackville West. The book is really a kind of joke, but also an expression of love from Virginia Woolf to Vita Sackville West. The title Orlando is inspired by Shakespeare. Shakespeare has this character Orlando, and as you like it, he's in love with Rosalind, the wonderful Rosalind, who is a woman dressed as a man. There's also another Shakespearean play inspiring this novel by Virginia Woolf, and that is the play Twelfth Night, in which you have the wonderful Viola, who is again a young woman who's dressed and disguised as a man. So Orlando in Virginia Woolf's novel is both a woman and a man. Virginia Woolf is admired by so many writers because she writes from a female point of view that she describes in this book as a point of view that casts a sidelong glance at the world, a glance full of subtlety, even suspicion. And this book is wonderfully ironic. It's full of jokes and good humor, full of moments when you just are shocked by the insight of Virginia Woolf. So we have this male-female figure, Orlando, who lives more than 300 years. The book is addressed to Vita Sackville West, I should say, and there's three people who are essential, real-life people who are essential to the writing of this: Vita Sackville West herself, Virginia Woolf, and Leonard Woolf, Virginia's husband. Now, there's a film that has been made recently in England by Chania Button, and it stars two very good actresses, Gemma Arterton and Elizabeth Debicki, and they portray Vita and Virginia. And the title of the film is Vita and Virginia. You're now seeing some scenes from that film. I've seen it twice, actually, and it's much better than some people have said, but it's very difficult to get a grasp on these particular kinds of figures now. Even though Virginia Woolf is so terribly modern, she was, a person living in the very early part of the 20th century. The First World War was unbelievably important. Vita Sackville-West was a woman with whom Virginia Woolf had a powerful love affair. Virginia Woolf seems, by all accounts, her own included, not to have slept really with Leonard Woolf, her husband, though the two people loved each other very deeply and dearly. The great physical love of Virginia Woolf's life was Vita Sackville-West. They were lovers for about a year, a little bit more. Then the physical relation stopped, but they remained very good friends until Virginia Woolf's death by suicide in 1941. Vita Sackville-West was an extraordinary person, and the film does a relatively good job of portraying how unusual these two women were. This is all important because Orlando is a kind of satirical, joking love letter written by Virginia Woolf to Vita Sackville-West. Now, there was also a film made of Orlando about 30 years ago with Tilda Swinton playing the major part. And it's interesting because that film is very almost morose, glum, extremely serious, and does not capture the essence of Orlando. The book Orlando is a comedy. It is very funny. It is ironic. It's not gray and gloomy and glum. Now, the crucial scene in the novel, which tells you an enormous amount about it, is when, it's funny, after about 150 years, Orlando becomes a woman. He shifts from male to female. And this is the famous passage. He stood upright in complete nakedness. Truth, truth, truth. We have no choice left but to confess. He was a woman. The change of sex, though it altered their future, did nothing whatever to alter their identity. That famous passage in the novel employs this third-person plural pronoun that is now being used by people to talk about non-binary individuals. And yet it appears here in this novel 100 years ago. As the text says, Orlando was man, she was woman, she knew the secrets, shared the weaknesses of each, and enjoyed the love of both sexes equally. Woolf does a tremendous job of giving you both a sense of Orlando as a man first, and then Orlando as a woman. And the novel concludes in 1928 with a wonderful, amazing evocation of London in the 1920s. The stream of consciousness is just so deeply poetic that the reader swims in a sense of deep, deep poetry, inspired and geared to the movements of everyday life. Orlando is a book for our time, and it's a book, I think, for the future.